everyone, my name is Laura. Welcome to my channel. Sorry I'm looking a little bit hanging today. It's been a cold, rainy day in Bristol and I just couldn't be bothered, if I'm honest. So, I have made a pendant today. It's a bit of a create with me really, but today I have done this copper and labradorite woven captured cabochon. Look at that. The stone is stunning. So basically this tutorial is how you cage a gemstone nice and easily and how you do a woven bail, and then what you do is just play about with the wires and see what happens. You know, it's a fun kind of almost how you can see my mind working as we go along. I didn't have a design in mind when I did this project. I was just going to see what happened, and that's exactly what happened. You can see where it goes a little bit wrong for me and how I can fix it. So yeah, let me know what you think at the end of the video, and yeah, here we go. Hi everyone, so today we're going to be doing a wrapped cabochon with a little bit of a woven embellishment. So for this I'm going to be using this labradorite cabochon here. How beautiful is that gemstone? I'm going to be using 0.8 bare copper wire, and I'm going to be using some 0.4 bare copper wire. In gauges, I believe that that's a 0.8 is a 20 gauge, and I think that the 0.4 is about a 22 gauge. Okay, so what I'm going to do is catch this cabochon and then catch it in a nice, very simple wrap or caging effect, and then use the excess wires to decorate around the gemstone. So I've cut around about 50 centimeters of wire off. I tend to do this, I tend to have like a default length of wire that I will cut, and it is around about 50 centimeters. What I will say is that, you know, the size of your gemstone will vary, so I can't really give accurate measurements as to how much wire you would need. The bigger the stone, the more wire. The smaller stone, maybe not so much wire. It's something that you will have to kind of learn to kind of judge. But my general rule is, if you have enough wire that can go around the gemstone like we have here, and then all the rest is going to be weaving and bail making fun. So that tends to be my general rule. I will also say that I find it easier to actually be able to add more, you know, to cut the wire off than to add it back in. So if you've got too much, it's easier to trim that down. Then if you have not got enough, it's a bit trickier to kind of start adding wire in. That's my tip of the day. Anyway, I've got my wires. So I've got 3 lengths of 0.8, around about 50 centimeters. And I'm just making them all nice and parallel to each other. Taking my 0.4 wire, finding roughly the centre. So I've got the tail ends there. I'm coming roughly to the centre. It doesn't have to be smack on in the centre. And I'm just wrapping very gently. So I do a couple just to get the wire around, and then I will come in, make sure that those wires are straight like they should be. And then I'm not putting a lot of tension onto this. I'm just very gently making sure that it's going around in a nice wrap. So basically, the amount of times that you go around is actually up to you. As a function, to do the job, it really just needs to be about 5-6 times. It's probably about half of just under a centimetre or so. But visually as a design, then it's up to you. So, for example, should you be wanting to set your gemstone in this direction, you might want to wrap this whole part of the caging effect in wire, having that wrapped effect. See, like that, so it goes all the way around. But remember that wherever your wraps are, your wires that are going to come around the edge can't come out until the wrap is finished. So if you wrap all the way up to here, then you're not going to be able to pull your sort of side wires out until after the wraps. Also, don't forget you can set it at a different orientation, so don't be afraid to kind of set it in this direction. That's where, to me, the wires being wrapped all the way along here comes into play. I think it looks really pretty. Again, it's people's personal preference, so just saying really. So I'm just going to wrap it a little bit more, and I do tend to do a couple of wraps, stop, give it a little straighten and tidy up, make sure that it's going as it should do, and then continue round. Whoops, the cabochon went for a little swim then. Bear with me a moment, just cutting the shadow down a little bit. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going around and around. There we go, a couple more times, just until you're happy with the way it looks, to be honest. Again, as I said, it's personal preference. Now what you do need is both the wires to be on the same side. So you can see I've got a wire on this side and I've got a wire on this side. What I'm going to do is I'm coming in with my flush cutters. Now I'm using my 0 and 1 just because they're a little bit more tapered and I can get in it nice and close. But if you've got your beadle-on ones or any other brand, then obviously that's your choice. Now what I want to do is cut the wire, the weaving wire, so it comes halfway across these 3 wires. So I'm lifting it up slightly and I'm just trimming that. So can you see how it's just halfway across? Now when I take my pliers and flatten that, that's going to be nice and neat, and that's not going to come across the edge at all. Okay, and then do the same on the opposite side. So I'm going to just trim that, cut it halfway across, flatten that down. Okay, and there we go, and that's it, nice and simple. That side that I've just cut the wires onto will be the inside, so make sure you turn that, oops, sorry, make sure that you turn the whole piece around. I just moved you out a little bit so that I can actually move my hands around. The camera's very, very close to my hands, that's why I keep hitting it, so apologies for that. So what I'm going to do now is take a pair of the wires, obviously the front or back, it doesn't matter at the moment because there's no set front or back. And I'm just going to, if I show you, so I've just taken an outer pair of the wires and I'm just going to sort of place this. So if I take the gemstone and place that in, I want that to support or help towards supporting the back of the gemstone. That's what that's going to do. Okay, obviously if you're using a transparent gemstone or transparent bead, then be aware that it may show through your gemstone to the front of your design. I'm then going to take this gemstone. Another little tip as well, when you are working with gemstones such as labradorite, you know, you can see the way that the colour changes every time I turn this around. So make sure you set this gemstone or whatever gemstone you're working with, that really brings the best of that gemstone out, that really brings the beauty out. Okay, so it's something to consider. It's not just about a technique, it's also about looking at your piece and thinking about how you're going to bring the best of that gemstone, do it justice. Okay, so I'm bringing these wires around. And I want to make sure that these wires here and here don't cross. I need them to stay so that the centre one stays in the centre and the front one stays at the front. You don't try to cross on me. There we go. Pop my gemstone in and I'm just going to pinch them together. Make sure that you can try to make sure your little wrap at the front here stays central, because it's very easy and it happens very quickly for it to travel and you don't realise, and it can throw the whole design off if it's moved off centre, and it's very tricky to fix after you've done that. So just try to make sure all of these little things before you complete the next move. So I've got that into place. I've placed these wires as I want them. Okay, and I'm actually there, almost pinching that quite tight. So I'm holding a gemstone and then pinching them together. I'm going to take the wire that's actually from the back set of wires that are supporting the back of the gemstone, and I'm going to bring this all the way around. I'm going to take both of them and I'm going to just gently really wrap nice and tight that bail. Okay, so there's your gemstone. Now that's actually held not very securely, but because of the fact that I've used a finer gauge of wire, it's gripped it really nicely. So what I want to do now is obviously set this. So I'm just going to take my nails just to start to open that out. If you don't have nails, you know, obviously use your pliers. I am now going to come in with my pliers and I'm just going to give a very gentle twist. This is my flat nose pliers. I'm just giving a really gentle twist just here, and the same, trying to line it up with sort of the curve of the gemstone just here, and just a little twist with my hand, That will just help catch the bottom of that gemstone into place. And you can do the same at the top if visually you want it to match. So using your thumb to stop this wire from scooping across the gemstone, you can just come in at the top of the gemstone and just catch that slightly. And then we can set that back a little bit, and there's your nice clean, look at that gem, look at that glow. Now at the back, we want to come across and make sure that this is as it should be. So we've got the wire going across here. We've got our wire going across the centre and across the front. Now that is going to need a tiny little bit more stabilisation, because if you look here, you've got a little bit of a vulnerable space. So what I'm actually going to do is, looking at these wires, because it's quite nice to try to make sure that the back looks pretty as well. We don't want that to escape, so I'm just playing with it really, seeing how I can bring it around and it will look nice. So I'm just going to come across, and then I'm going to just catch that just there. I think you can see that there's that gap between the wires, so I'm going to feed that wire through, and I'm going to do the same on the opposite side. And if there isn't a gap that's so apparent, you can pop in with your pliers and make one. Just make sure you catch all those wires, and then you come straight out through the front. Okay, now that's just going to give some stability to the back of the gemstone, and we can come in and tidy that up a little bit with a little bit of 0.4 if we need to just stitch these together here and here. But that will hold as well, and that's just given more stability to the back of the gemstone. It doesn't look messy, and then we've got wires here. Now I'm going to keep those wires there because I don't know if I'm going to use them. Okay, if you weren't going to use them, you can just bring that wire to here and to here, and you could cut them, and that would be your piece from that view. Okay, I'm going to just move them out of the way at the moment. So I've taken them to the back and I'm moving them out of the way, because what I want to do now is decide what I'm going to do with the rest of this design. First of all, I want to do my bail, because that needs to get done. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 wires here. So I'm going to do a woven bail. Now I'm being careful, because every time I pull a wire, obviously it's going to change these just here. Okay, so I'm going to come in now with some 0.4 gauge wire, and I'm going to just do a little bit of weaving. So I'm going to take my 0.4. Now I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 gauges, 1, 2, 3, 4 wires. I'm going to bring the wire right between the centre of 1, 2, 3, 4. So right in between the 2 pairs of wires. And I'm going to wrap. So what I'm going to do is wrap them in pairs. I'm going to wrap these, and then I'm going to wrap these as if they were one. Okay. I'm going to do a figure of 8 weave. Okay, now my wire looks slightly darker because it's oxidized slightly, but I'm okay with that. It's something that I could polish up. I quite like the colour contrast as well. So round once and then round again. It's in the middle. So I'm going to come across, around, and then around again, and it's in the middle. Okay, now I'm holding, as you can see, the tail wire for now. I will cut that in a moment. So around once and then around again, scooting it down just gently with your nails. Around once and around again. Okay, now I'm going to cut this little tail wire now, because I don't need it, and sometimes if you don't cut them straight away, it's easy to forget about them, and then you end up with little sharp edges of wire. So just use my pliers then again just to cut any sharp edges, just to flatten it down. So you can see here, these two wires and these two wires are staying flat next to each other, and we're just doing this nice simple weave once, around again, scooting it down. Not a lot of tension. You can see I'm being quite relaxed about this. Once and around twice, around once and around twice. So we're just going to keep doing this. Whoops, there we go. And obviously it does depend on how big you want this bail to be, as to how much weaving you do. But what I'm going to do is a sort of a diamond weave. So I'm going to just weave, this little fella's getting in the way. Now if they're getting in your way like these are, just kick the wires into the direction you want them to go. So can you see I've moved them into the right directions now? So they shouldn't keep getting in my way when I'm trying to weave. Once and then twice, round once and then twice. Okay, so I'm going to get to a point now where I'm going to want to put a sort of a bend in the wires to make it into a diamond. So what you can see, I'm just scooting it down because it does rise up a little bit, and it makes you think that you've done a little bit more weaving than you actually have. Okay, go around once and around twice, around once and then around twice. So I'm going to stop, and I'm going to kick these wires in. So again, I'm going to take my pliers and just gently bend the wires into it, because I'm going to be doing a diamond shape. So I want to bend them, but I also then want to kind of shape them out. So I'm going to come in with my flat nose pliers again. I'm going to bend them and bend them. And again, I'm just going to kind of almost make a diamond with them. Can you see that? Because now I've still got my channel to be able to weave my wire in between. Okay, so I'm going to continue round as we were. And when we form this, the diamond part here will be the centre of the bail. Okay, so I just quickly did a little bit off screen because you didn't need to see me doing all of that. Now, I'm nearly at the point where the wires are going to meet, so I wanted you to see this. When you're weaving downwards towards, so when your weaving is going out towards the outer V, then it's quite easy because it sits down nicely. When you're going down towards the taper, what happens is it kind of wants to skip down these wires. So you just have to be a little bit slow and a little bit more controlled, and really make sure that that wire sits where it's meant to sit, because it will try and skip down. So it's just, again, a little tip that I've learned the hard way, really. So as it gets closer, you can see here, it's getting closer now. And this will now be the bail complete. So what you now need to decide is you need to look at your bail and you need to decide which way it's going to go. By that, I mean, so I'm just flattening all these wires. So all sit in as they should do here. So by that, what I mean is, if you like this part of your bail or this part of your bail, it depends as to whether you roll it forwards or backwards. I'm also going to look at my piece as well and think realistically, I'm going to push the bail towards the front, which means I'm going to roll it backwards. Move these fellas out of the way. Okay, but sometimes if this looks a little bit neater or nicer and you think you want to roll in the opposite direction, that's fine. Just be aware that your wires are going to be in a different layout, and it's going to just mean you adapt your design slightly differently. Now I'm going to take my bail making pliers, okay, and I'm going to come in, I'm going to place them right at that diamond part of the bail, and I'm just going to roll that around. Okay, and I'm almost kind of pushing it forward a little bit and rolling that around. And there's your bail. Nice and simple. And I'm going to just take my pliers and kick so it meets it exactly as it should. And I've still got my 0.4. What I can do is come in and wrap all of that just to secure that together. Okay, and then I'm going to just bring it in through one of the little weaving gaps, round once, and then around twice, and then I can cut that, and that's nice and locked in place. Cut that, and again, don't forget to just come back in, make sure there's no sharp edges. That is your veil done. So now we've got all these wires, so I have to start thinking, okay, what do we do with all these wires? So I'm going to, again, keeping them in their pairs as they were for the bail, I'm going to bring them to the front. I'm going to work with one pair of wires first. Okay. And what I'm going to do is just holding this in place, I'm going to just swirl. Okay, and then I'm going to continue around. I'm just holding this with my thumb, and I'm bringing this around and just warming those wires with my hands. Okay, so that's that. And then these, I'm going to decide what I want to do with these. And again, there are no rules. Now, why haven't I done anything with these? Because I'm still looking at the design as to how it's going to work. So I need to decide exactly what I'm going to do with these wires, and then I can work out how I'm going to finish these. So I think I'm going to actually come down onto the gemstone. Really sort of open this up and get that down sort of in that direction. So now I can see where we're heading. So that's why I held onto that, so I wanted to see where we were going to go with this. Okay, I'm now going to come back to these fellas here. Okay, because I kept them there for a reason, as I wasn't sure what I was going to do with them. So now I can see how I might want to use them. So I'm going to come in with my my wire nylon pliers, which I call my wire straighteners, and I'm going to straighten out the little kink where I was moving them out of the way, and I'm going to see if I can get them to become friends. So by that, I'm going to come around just using my wire and spiraling around. Now it's just gone slightly, just because I haven't straightened it properly. It wasn't going as fluid as I would have liked, but that's right. It's nothing that pliers can't fix. And continuing round, try and control it so it looks neat, doesn't just look like a kind of a scribble. And that's met this one then. And now again, as the two of them together, I'm going to bring them around, and I'm just rotating the piece around so you can see that's how we're looking. Okay, so you can see why I haven't finished those wires just yet, because I don't know what I want to do with these, and I want to make sure that I've made all the moves, and then I can assess it and decide where to go from there. So I could keep it simple and just have these wires cut. So I'm going to look at it and think how it would look if they were all taken away. I also quite like the idea of how it would look with these wires coming down the side of the actual cabochon. So I'm actually now going to take my 0.4 wire, and again I'm going to do a little bit of weaving, the exact same weave that we did for the bail on these wires here. So to do this, I'm going to start off by taking my 0.4 towards the end of the wires, wrapping 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I'm going to cut that tail off. Just that little tail there. There we go. Get that little squidge. And then I used a top wire to attach that onto. Made that a little bit too tight. Scoot that up. Okay, so that's now there. Okay, So the exact same move that we just did. So it's in the middle, and then I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3 times around the inner wire over to the opposite side, and I'm going to wrap 1, 2, 3 times. It's back in the middle again, so over to the other side. 1, 2, 3. Over to the other side. 1, 2, 3. So you can see how that's filling out. Okay, so 1, 2, 3. Now this wire is going to start to curve because I'm going to want it to sort of come around here. So what I'm going to start to do is making sure those wires open out. Kick out the ends if you need to. And I'm going to maybe add an extra wrap. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to keep the inner wire wraps the same amount, but I'm going to just slightly increase the outer wire just because it's going on a slightly larger curve. So I want to keep the weave looking nice and neat. So it's 1, 2, 3 and 4. At the moment I'm doing 4 to 3, but when I start to get around the sort of the bigger curve, I'll probably go up to about 5, maybe 6. Okay, there's no general rule, it's just having a look and seeing. So that was 1, 2, 3, and this is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then going round. Okay, so I just took it off quickly to continue with the weaving because you need to watch me doing the same thing. Now I want to show you, do you remember earlier on when I said about the back at a point that we will stitch this together just to secure it? What I've done is taken the wire, it's going around, and I've taken that weaving wire and I've put it underneath the frame here, and one of those that extra wire that we took down and around. And then I'm going to go around twice. I'm just going to wrap those 2 wires. So I'm only wrapping the wires around the back now, just to give that stability. Can you see? And then I can come back, and I can just come back in and pick up my weaving again as it was going. Okay, so you can see if I turn that over, what that's done is that's attached that nice and securely to the pendant for me, and it's helped me to stabilize that section there. Okay, so I've just continued doing that weaving, so you can see that was the point that we just did. I've just carried on. Now I'm looking at the piece, and this is one of those kind of projects, this will be, where you'll have to kind of look and see if you're happy with the way that it's going. So I've now decided that I've stopped here, and I'm going to just play about this weave. And that's one thing I love about doing a kind of figure of 8 weave, is you can manipulate it round, and I'm going to just kind of twist it a little bit so it's got that movement. And can you see that now? So it's going to hug. What I've done is just turn that so that it hugs into the actual onto the stone, just like that. So at this point, this is again where I can now continue in the same weave. I'm back to equal numbers of going 3 on each side, but when I get to this one, I'm going to go around once, and what I'm going to do again for stability is I'm just going to bring the weaving wire under the frame wire. Can you see what I've done there? So this wire, that's actually this one and this one. You can see? Bring that around, and then just attaching that's just giving some stability. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we can see how we're going now, and we can see if we like how it's looking. Okay, and so whoops, the wire's attacking you. So what I'm going to do now is, I quite like how that's sort of evolved, and what I think I'm going to do is just take this wire and continue around just one of the wires. So I'm actually just going to coil, so hand coil the wire closest to the stone. By hand coiling, I mean I'm literally going to just, what I do is I wrap it a couple of times, stop, and then scoot that along. Okay, wrap it a couple of times. Scoot it along. A couple of times. It doesn't matter if it's got a few gaps, as long as it's straight, and then it will coil nicely. So going around, keep going. Okay, and I'm just going to wrap until I run out of this wire. Okay, nearly done. Okay, a couple more wraps. Okay, I think that will do. Coming in again, I'm just going to take my flush cutters and trim that. Now, I quite like how that was going then. Okay, as I was doing that, it's kind of naturally curved. Can you see? And I like that. Now I'm looking at that, I can see like a, oopsie, sorry, a few little bubbles of just the wire. Can you see that there and there? So I'm going to just come in with my pliers, just kind of very gently flatten out. Can you see how that settled it? So the way that that's gone, I quite like that. So I'm going to see how we go with this. I'm going to take that plain wire and bring it with a bit of a swirl. I'm going to just bring this wire all the way around with that additional detail and get it to kind of meet up with this one. Let's see where we go. Okay, so I'm kind of bringing it up around here now, moving the wires that are not in use at the moment and bringing that around here. I'm then going to take these around here. We can see how we're doing. Okay. And then these I'm going to just bring back up here, because I do love having the contrast of the sort of the bare wire and the weaving. And I'm going to take this wire, I'm just going to feed that through the actual weave itself. I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and I am going to just swirl this around. Just twirl that into a little bit of a loop, and then place that so it sits nicely in there. Can you see that? And going around. Okay, and then I still have this little wire here. So again, I think I'm going to just using my hand to bring that into a curve. I think I'm just going to tuck that behind the spiral, that with that little loop that we made there. I think he's just going to disappear into that. I think that would be about right. There we go. And there you have that side. Okay, so now you can see why I didn't cut these wires, because I wanted to make sure that I can do, I don't know, you know, as the design evolves, then that's when I make that decision as to what happens next. So I'm actually looking at this, and I really like it quite asymmetrical like this, but I'm looking at this. I don't think I want to bring any more weaving down. I think I'm happy with that weaving. So I think I'm going to do a little bit more hand coiling and put a coil onto one of these wires. So I'm taking my wire, I'm going to take the outer wire, I think. And a little tip for doing some hand coiling is just take the wire, go towards the very end of it, and then you have all this space here to do your weaving, your coiling. It's a lot easier than trying to do your coiling right up close to the piece. Okay, so I'm just bringing that around, doing a couple of coiling sections, taking my pliers, scooting that along. And just keep going. And I think I'm just going to coil the whole length of this and see what happens. And I actually quite like the fact that the wire that I'm using has tarnished or has started to oxidize, because I think it adds a nice contrast to the bright copper. And obviously it means that they'll both patina, it will naturally patina at different stages as well. So it will always be a little bit darker. Now I could, if I wanted to, take some steel wire wool and I could run that over all of this. It would polish it up beautifully. So, you know, it's up to you. You could also obviously patina the whole piece after as well. Again, your choice. If you were patina, and in case you're not sure what I mean by patina, patinaing is where you oxidize your piece of bare copper, and sterling silver is the only metals that you can do it to. You can't do it to a plated wire. It has to be a bare wire. So I'm just scooting that up, making sure that I'm happy with that. Okay, and you basically use a product called liver of sulfur gel, and you pop your product in there, and there we go. And you pop your piece in there, sorry, and it will basically speed up the process. So where this wire is already darker, this is natural. The liver sulfate will do that for you and speed it up, and it will take it to an almost black colour. You can stop it at various stages, and then what you do is you take your polish in and you polish it, and you just get lots of depth of colour. In fact, here's a piece that I've patinaed, and you can see where some of it's darker and some of it's lighter, so it just brings out that depth of colour. So yeah, there you go. So I'm just very quickly finishing this coil off, and I'm going to just have a little look at how it's sitting. So I do need to do a little bit more. Okay, I've gone ahead and done that, so you can see, and what I've done is I've just left a little tail of plain wire at the bottom, because I'm going to need that to be able to connect that wire, or maybe to finish it. Okay, so that's that one. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is working with that and the plain one. I'm going to bring them both around for one more kind of coil, and bring them, and I quite like letting these cross over, do a little sort of dance, whatever. And then they can kind of just come along here, and then we can take our round nose pliers and maybe pop this into sort of a nice place. I'm just taking a coiled one at the moment and seeing if there's a place I can feed that wire where it will blend in. If not, I'm going to have to lift some wires, lift that pair of wires and place it under, so it's hooked. So what I did then was I just popped my pliers just to lift the wires up a little bit. There we go. So you can see that's just hooked around there now, and that will be that will be hidden by these wires. And I'm going to do the same with this wire just here. So I'm just rolling it so it hooks underneath. You can see that just there. I'm just going to come in and catch that end and roll that so it is. There we go. So if I show you, you can see they're both rolled like that, but that will settle down now, and that will be also covered by this set of wires here. So that's how we're looking. So this one's gone a little bit, sort of got a few little bends in it, which I don't particularly want. Okay, so I'm going to come back to this one, and we're going to just go around, and I think I'm going to, again, same as we did on this side, just bring this wire around and into a more organic sort of swirl effect, and stabilizing those wires. So I'm just taking that around. goes around like that, and to be honest, I think feeding that through towards the back, because obviously I want it to look right. Let's have a look. Coming in towards the top, and I'm just going to bring this around into that place there, so we can see that there's still a little bit of stability. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to come back in, and I'm just going to take that set of wires and centralize it more towards the center of the bail, and I'm just gently finishing that. That's better. Okay, so we're looking, and then again we've got this little piece here, so again I think I'm just going to bring that straight up, because it's very easy to get carried away with this. Okay, I'm going to come in and just kind of straighten that little section there. Okay, and just pop this into a little kind of spiral. I'm almost try and get that little spiral to sit into the loop I just made. There, sits like that, and that's going to sit like that, and there is your kind of finished, organically wrapped labradorite pendant. That's nice and caught into place. Now I can also take my nails or your pliers and run your fingers down there to really give that a lovely sort of deep sort of shape. And then one more tiny thing. So we already dealt with that side when we were doing the weaving, but we didn't deal with the other side, and I do want to make sure that we've got 100% stability. So I'm going to come in with my 0.4 wire, and I'm just going to feed it. I'm going to just lift this wire up slightly, and then I'm going to come along and just gently lift this one up with my pliers. Not too worried whereabouts I go, I just want to be able to get it under that wire. Oops. Let's go in the opposite direction, shall we? It does. That is a good sign that I'm struggling, because it means that it is securely attached to the stone. But I'm just doing this for extra security and stability. So those wires underneath, that 0.4 is underneath those two wires just there. Just going to bring that across, and I'm just going to wrap that once. And then twice, and then maybe just one more time for luck. Okay, so that's that. So those wires are held together, and then what I'm probably going to do is just look for a quick little opportunity just along here that I can secure that 0.4 to, which in this case is one of these little wires just here. And you'll notice I'm using my pliers. It just means I can get exactly into where I need to go. 1, 2. That's all you need. A little wrap. Trim that wire. And that's going to be nice and secure now. I'm just going to take this wire, and I'm just going to, because obviously I need to finish that wire. So I'm just wrapping it around the outer wire once. Trim that. Trying to make sure there's no sharp edge. Now, a little tip that I tend to do, if I'm using a plated wire, it works really well. Okay, That was the wrap that we originally started with. Now, because of the amount of work that we've done on the front of the pendant, it has actually moved to the back, but I don't mind because everything along here is doing the job and protecting that stone, so it's absolutely fine. So just have a look at your piece, see if there's anything you want to tweak visually, if you want to make it look a little bit, you know, make sure you're happy with how it's looking. And then one thing I would say is I always often go over the piece with my hands, just make sure I can feel, and that way I will feel if there's any sharp edges, if there's any little pieces of wire that we may have missed. And I'm going to take my pliers, these are my nylon pliers, those weren't my best pair, and I'm going to just go over everything and make sure I'm happy with the way everything looks. Am I happy with that? I think so. I'm not too sure I'm happy with this little spiral here. And it's okay to be a bit unsure. Okay, just replace that. I'm happy with that being replaced. Okay, and then just making sure that you're happy. And that everything is secure and stable and nothing can escape. And we're all good to go, I think. That is secure as it should be. There we go. No sharp edges. There is your finished pendant. So I hope you like. You know, it is a little bit of a create as you go. It is, sorry, that wire is going to bug me, so I'm going to have to, and this will happen as well. So I'm going to come in, I'm going to take that wire off because that will annoy me. I'm going to move it slightly higher up. There we go. Where did it go? I just wanted it to go a bit higher because from the front I could see it and it was annoying me. So this is why it's always good to look at your piece and be 100% happy with that before you move on to your next stage. There we go. So what I did was I just took that higher up where it was lower down. I took it higher up, and in that way I know that when I turn that over now, you can't see it. What's happening was I could see this little flash of wire just here, and it was annoying me. So there you go. There's your sort of organic, natural inspired pendant. You can do whatever you want with the design. You know, play about with it, see what you think, add some weave in, add some coil in, and just let the design evolve. And yeah, there you are. I hope you like it. Any questions, please ask. Let me know what you think. You know, if you're going to have a go at it, then please let me see what you create. I'd love to see that. But there's just a guideline as to how you can sort of evolve a standard caged wrap with a little tiny bit of weaving and just get a bit of a fun organic style pendant. As always, have a great day, and I hope you like this video. If you do, please click subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up, and yeah, have a great day.